Okay. I've prepared a few slides. I'm going to skip over most of them because we have an hour, and I want to also give you some experience here today, such as an instant mass healing demo, which until 2020 has never been brought on the internet. So that's something new for 2020. I'm going to be discussing some simple ways to beat some of the dangers that people are experiencing right now. Such as pneumonia. A simple technique. Pneumonia is definitely on the list. I'll be teaching more about those techniques in the next hour after this one. So let's begin. Can I do, yeah, I can do screen share here.
Stephen, if you're more comfortable in the dining room, that's an option. I just want to make sure you're aware of it.
Yeah, I'm good here. I'm going to do a little bit of a screen share option. That's all right. The angle on me is not that great anyway. So here we are. And I've been speaking about the science behind all the healing arts and all empowerment, with a focus primarily on the big killers for quite a while. My father pioneered a lot of that science, and the bulk of it, some of the key science on that was actually buried. I'm going to give people a link where if they want more science on this, they can go get it. They want more understanding about how every aspect of our lives is connected to the life and death process of the cells. They can go get it. I'm giving away a huge gift as part of this presentation because, well, 1 hour isn't enough more than just to barely skim this, scratch the surface of the surface here. Here we are with a disclaimer that my presentations, my course material is for educational purposes only. Any part, no information or interpretation is used for diagnosis or treatment or doing anything that would normally require a license. Because of the nature of the discoveries, anyone who uses the information taught herein must do so as a result of his or her own free agency. And I'd recommend you consult both sides, as there is opposition in life. At least I give myself some credit here. My father was nominated for some Nobel Prizes. He discovered the engine of the cells. He was a world-renowned physiologist because of that, because physiology, cellular physiology is the basis of all physiology. And physiology means functionality, for those of you who never knew that. So the whole system, the whole body is made up of cells. And if all the cells are working, are we healthy or sick? So we're going to talk about the condition of those cells where they shut off. And we're going to discuss how every aspect of our lives, mental, emotional, nutritional, physical, nutritional, spiritual, everything is connected to that life and death process. Life's made of systems, and in every one of those systems, I'm going to come back off of the screen share now. Well, I guess I did. I am off of the screen share, right? Emerus. I guess he's on the phone with Dean. So okay. Hello? There we go. So was just doing my best to change the screen share here. And okay, here we are. So I'm going to take you through a few processes just to help you understand. I'm going to skip right to the really important parts of what's happening. All the life processes come down to that life process of the cells, but every aspect of our lives is inseparably interconnected. So if you take every area, it's like the whole tree. When you consider every area of our lives that we're talking about, and they all have a certain amount of laws. When we're out of alignment with any of those areas, they actually shut off the life process of our cells. And when we're in alignment, we actually get the fruit of the actual tree of life for that part of our body. Think about the magnitude of this. It is actually the science behind the actual tree of death and the actual tree of life. Each area we have categories and they have their subcategories. I'm just going to hold this here for a second. So each area of our lives, right now, people are dealing with something very serious because our own mind and body, our own mind, when we tap into it, we're tapping into the greatest pharmacy ever. Your body produces some of the same chemicals that are the most powerful immune chemicals that you can get. And what activates those is things like happiness, laughter, the things that make us feel good. There's a reason for that. You're actually turning on your endocrine glands that produce hormones that make you feel good. And you're turning on the life processes with your activity. And I'm going to get into how it's all interconnected. But when we're out of alignment, I want to talk about first fear. First and foremost, the number one cause of death. The number one cause of death for soldiers in war. Right? Not everybody knows that it's fear. Most of the wounds are non-lethal, but most of them have this thought process that, oh no, I can't believe I just got shot. I see life force leaving my body, my blood. I'm going to die now. And that fear of death dilates blood capillaries because our body produces histamine and bradykinin. Whether we smash a finger or have fear, it's the histamine and bradykinin that dilates blood capillaries. And out comes the water. In Noah's day, the water came externally, and today the water's been coming internally. And every disease is associated with that excess fluid. So I'm going to go back to share my screen on a really special slide that let me get this slide pulled up for you. I'll just go straight to it. And now I'll do a screen share. Do that. So this one here. This represents, on the left, a healthy environment of the cells, and on the right is the disease environment. So, yeah, if you haven't had a chance to see this because you're watching Facebook Live that I'm doing, you may want to go to clarityuniversity.com and you can find this chart of the healthy versus the disease environment of the cells. And I'm going to spend most of my time right there explaining this. On the top, you've got a blood capillary, and on the bottom is a lymphatic capillary. And they're more extensive than the blood, the lymphatic vessels. We have more of them than we do blood vessels, and more lymph in the body than blood. And the blood is a positive pressure system. Lymph is a subpressure, negative pressure system. I just want to ask you, is that about the blood and lymph that I've explained, that one is positive pressure, one's negative pressure? Is that too complicated, or should that be taught? That we have more lymph in the blood. I mean, more lymph in the lymph vessels than we do blood in the bloodstream. There's more lymph in the body. That is, unless you look at the, we're mostly lymph. Unless you look at the body at the molecular level, then we're mostly hot air. So I'm one of those people who are all the talking I do, right? That's a joke. So I want you to pay really close attention to this chart. And what you have is, in the blood, there's arteries, veins, and capillaries. Those are the three types of vessels. The arteries and veins have a muscle layer around them, so that's not where the cells get the oxygen or nutrients directly. But at the capillary level, that's where they're right at the bed of the cells, and they're full of holes called capillary pores. So with every beat of the heart, with a positive pressure in the blood, it pushes water out with the dissolved minerals and nutrients to the cells, and it shoots all the way across the bed of the cells if they are in a healthy environment. I'm going to come back off of this now. There we go. So I figured that out. So it's going to shoot all the way across the bed of the cells if they're in a healthy environment, right? That's really important because the cells are held in supposed to be in that healthy environment. They're in a sub-pressure environment, and that was discovered by Dr. Arthur C. Guyton, who my father made famous. He's the author of the medical textbook of physiology, which today is the most commonly used medical textbook of physiology in the United States. And a lot of that was because my father held it up and quoted from it in 200 cities a year for 17 years. And he was lecturing that way. And he was one of the keynote speakers for NHF. But I'm going to just say this Arthur C. Guyton was a student of a guy named H.S. Marison, who was on my father's advisory board to the day he died. He proved that we don't even have a positive pressure in the bloodstream if it wasn't for the subpressure lymphatic vessels. And he published that in Circulation in the 60s, right before they decided to bury all the research on it. And still today, they're talking about a myth. I'm going to get into that. The myth that's still being taught in medical school. Doctors aren't taught. It's not their fault, but they get a lot of wrong results because they haven't been taught the basics. They're still in what my father called the medical dark ages. And what we're doing by sharing, and again, I'm coming to this, that screen share. I'm gonna do that again. Let's, that. There. Here we go. This is not hot. The mechanics of what I'm explaining on this chart is the reason why we say they're still in the medical dark ages. And if I can help you understand this, then you will be brought out of the medical dark ages today. What they spend 10 years and hundreds of thousands of dollars missing, I'm handing you on a silver platter. And again, if you want more information about this, I'm going to send it to you. The link for that is thelawsofempowerment.com. There's currently 17 hours of highly refined scripted material just waiting for you. There's more than that because I just added a couple of audios that make it easy. One of them is only 15 minutes. It's just a good interview. Another one's like 47 minutes of scripted audio. Then there's 2 hours called Zero Disease that's scripted. And I'm giving you just a summary and on what's happening. So if all you do, see all the viruses like COVID-19, what they call coronavirus, the new one for this year, or I mean last year, what came out, that's the abbreviation plus the year. There's so many different coronaviruses that have happened. But now they want to make a big deal out of this. And I appreciate what David said in an earlier presentation on this summit. This is the Life Lotus Summit, first one. And we're actually in David's house, and he was broadcasting, I think, from Florida. What he said about the actual statistics of how many people die every year just from the flu puts things in really, really strong perspective. And whether it's a virus, whether it's any poison, poisons are poisons because they damage cells. When you feed a dog or rat strychnine, it damages cells. And those damaged cells produce histamine and bradykinin and dilate the capillary that you see there on top, so that the blood protein, the albumin, that mostly it takes 24 hours for the whole albumin content to leave. Yet Starling's hypothesis says it doesn't happen at all. And that's what they're teaching at Harvard and all the medical schools, is Starling's hypothesis still today from the 1800s. This is what they buried, and we'll give you more of the actual hardcore proof of that in the Zero Disease class. But check out why the doctors that are the top medical minds can't publish in the medical schools anymore. The ones that were the top minds in the world, with the help of international military forces, they even went behind the Iron Curtain to gather them all up, with the biggest medical research project ever produced still today. And it was to bury this. And this is our definition of the medical dark ages. I'm speaking very strongly because I have preeminence in this topic. Our form of lymphology is an advanced form of immunology. So I was helping zero convert AIDS. We're going to get into that. But that was, starting in 1993 in the middle of the big AIDS scare when I started doing that. We'd already done everything we wanted with heart disease and cancer and everything that we'd ever seen. So that was just the next new thing. And right in the middle of the big AIDS scare, with top medical minds say it was impossible, we were doing it. And they can only take off in the disease environment here. See where my cursor is on the right. In that environment, usually white blood cells and lymphocytes are pretty hardy, and they have a high ability to function, right? They're the best fighters. They're like the army or the special forces in your body. The lymphocytes, they're made up of white blood cells. And if they're shut off, that's when the HIV virus has an opportunity to use it as a host. So it's literally a wolf in sheep's clothing. And there's a rumor that the COVID-19 coronavirus, that it does the same thing, or that it has the same shell as HIV. And I don't think the people who've spread that rumor know much of anything of what they're actually talking about, but all the cards aren't in yet. All the facts, that is, about the science has not come in yet. But what I'm telling you is that's what the HIV virus does. It uses the lymphocytes as a host to transport itself. It's one of the things that makes it difficult. Now, when they go through, as they get pulled out, the lymph vessels are lined with one-way check valves. And I'm going to start telling you what activates that is deep breathing, bouncing, and inverting, like when we were standing on our hands or doing a downward dog, whatever we were doing when we were young to invert, whether a partial inversion or full inversion. Inverting, anytime there's less pressure above the one-way check valves than below, then those valves open up and push fluid through a little bit at a time. So those are the things that do it internally, and how many programs have been built on deep breathing alone. So we've been a strong advocate of that. Now, so you're going to help bring that healthy environment back in. Why? Because you're pulling the fluid out from around the cells. And then the things that do it externally are like the laying on of hands, like massage, stroking, compressing tissues, and massage. And the top massage therapist, the one that I know, the first guy to make $1 million doing massage, was a student of my father and mine. Will Green still hasn't had a muscle come to him he hasn't known how to fix ever since he became a student of this work. When we pulled him out of the medical dark ages, all of a sudden he hasn't had a muscle come to him he hasn't been able to fix yet. So this is amazing what this means for massage therapists, because all muscle fibers do is contract and relax, and they ended up in a contracted position on the right side of the chart every single time in lack of oxygen. The same engine that my father discovered and named the sodium-potassium pump, which the 2003 Nobel Prize in Chemistry was awarded for research on, that same engine, depending on what position it's in, if it's a muscle fiber, that fiber will contract or relax. And so it has to be turned on in order to relax. And that's why, again, in that disease environment, they're in a contracted position every single time. We know from nurses are now taught in school that it's responsible for every beat of the heart. So even the intrinsic muscles, which are the smooth muscles that they say are non-voluntary, are affected by this. And if we can affect this, they say there's nothing we could do to affect them. But when we affect this, they relax too. So it's the mechanism. If you understand the mechanisms behind it, you know, they name diseases according to who discovered it, because they want credit for your problem, basically. They want their name on it. And how it affects that part of the body, who discovered it, or which mechanisms. Most people figure out, by the way, how it affects what part of the body it's happening in. Most people figure that out because that part of the body stops working. But which mechanisms, you know, if we can reverse the mechanisms that cause it, can we reverse the diseases? You know, that's the question that I ask you. If we understand it, can we prevent those diseases? If we understand the mechanisms. If we understand the number one cause of death in war is the fear. And I'm going to come back out of this real quick. There we go, so you can see me. If you understand that the number one cause of death is the fear of the thing, not the actual bullet, that most wounds are non-lethal. And still today, the number one cause of death in war is the fear. And why haven't any of the soldiers been taught that? Because the government is so screwed up, and some of it is, because of the medical profession connection with the government, that it's been entrenched in our government. There are a whole bunch of laws broken to pull that off. A lot of areas of our lives where we've been experiencing abuse, there are a lot of things that have been broken. And the laws of empowerment gets into all those things, where we've been abused the most, which areas of our lives have been out of alignment the most with the actual life process of ourselves. It actually goes into detail explaining how we even develop positive or negative with more detail than any program I've ever known of. And currently, it doesn't require a username or password to get in. If you just go to the lawsofempowerment.com, on enter, you can start while you're being confined to your homes or whatever. You can start getting educated. This is exactly the perfect time for this programming, and it's what I spent the last 4.5 or so years of my life producing without getting paid for it. So it's a low budget production right now, but when it gets funded, it will dress up really, really well. And this is the year I was shown that we're meant to ask for funding. I have access to a 501c3. If anybody knows someone last year who had a very high tax liability, who still qualifies for a tax write-off to a charity, if they want to talk to their accountant, they're probably the ones who will be able to tell them. That's what I recommend, to really know. If you know anyone, let me know, because we can use that. Especially even for last year, there's a way, but we can make it for last year. But for this year, also moving forward, because that strategy for last year isn't going to exist for long at all, especially if people already, once they file. But for this year, yeah, this is, I hope I'm not misspeaking. I'm not a lawyer and I'm not an accountant. So, but for this year, that's why I'm asking people to get with their accountants also, see what can be done. We've got a lot of fundraising to do, it looks like. And this program hasn't been funded, hasn't received any funding from any governments or anything like that. It's all been very private and very personal. And most people of the people who come that are involved with nursing, or most massage therapists are single mothers doing their best they can to make a living. And we haven't, we've had a reputation for not turning people away, for making it possible. And now there's a new affiliate program that Dean is involved with here with the Life Lotus events, where you can get involved also as an affiliate. And for your first level, you can make 30%. Your second level, it's only 2 levels. Anything beyond that's considered a multi-level. But we can get away with 2 with that affiliate program. You can make 10% on that second level. So you can make up to 40%. That's not bad. You know, have you ever heard with 3, it's free? Well, that's helped a lot of people make a lot of money. And if say Harvard did that, you know, instead of worrying about the $200,000 of that it is for, you know, it's more than that now for admission. That's, you know, if it was the 3, it's free, it wouldn't matter so much anymore if they had a few other people that they were able to bring in. That's what my point is. So think about the opportunities with this. And I'm going to get right back to that chart with the screen share again. And here we are. Here we go. And we're going to continue. So, remember the Black Knight and King Arthur on the Monty Python show? You're going to actually see a clip of that in the Laws of Empowerment, where, you know, the Black Knight says, "You shall not pass," and the king, you know, they sword fight, and King Arthur chops his arm off, and there's blood spurting and everything, and he said, "Move aside," and the Black Knight says, "It's just a flesh wound." It's really funny, but if our soldiers had more of that attitude, a lot more of them would be alive today, because the thought processes, they can be so extreme. If you even think about you think about swatting a fly, it makes you weaker with kinesiology tests. Think about shooing it out the door, it makes you stronger. That subtleness of the negative thoughts, they can actually create a lot of the symptoms that people are experiencing, including the death by shock that people are experiencing. And that can be prevented if we're just not having the fear that we're talking about. Because those wounds in war, they're non-lethal. Most of them are non-lethal, the ones that their soldiers are actually dying from. They're dying from the thought processes. And Merson, that we mentioned, who tagged the blood proteins, who published in the American Heart Association Journal. He was also on the shock committees internationally. He was on the physiology boards. He was one of the top shock experts and physiologists internationally. So this is what we're talking about. This is how fast it can happen. If you lose enough pressure from the blood vessels collapse, leaving you dead. And they knew that in even the 1800s, before they knew about lymphatic vessels, if they did enough exploratory surgery, they knew as soon as they lost enough pressure, blood vessels would collapse, leaving us dead. And its technical name is actually hypo-albuminemia. That means low albumin in the blood. And that's the same protein that we're talking about that needs to be retrieved every 24 hours, even naturally. So for a shallow breather, if you're cooped up in your house and you're being a shallow breather, you're at a lot higher risk at what's going on right now. Being a couch potato, we need you up and active, deep breathing. Okay. So we need you up and active and deep breathing. So make sure I got this. Okay. Stay active. I'm going to share some more specific things in the next hour of practical application. But I've had people in my audiences, like there was a lady with MS at one of the presentations that I did, who I hadn't seen for years. I didn't recognize her at the football game that I was at an alumni reunion at the high school that I graduated from. She says, "Are you that guy that was teaching about the deep breathing and the bouncing and the activating of the lymphatics?" And I said, "Yeah, that must have been me." And she says, "Well, I was there and it was at a health food store." I'm like, "Yeah, I remember that actual presentation that I gave that." She says, "I believed what you said, that if all I did was what you mentioned, that I could start getting results right away, if that's all I did. And I also taught that, you can get a lot more dynamic results. We've learned how to accelerate things much more dynamically than just you doing your best with that, because we've had, so many years of refinement with the knowledge. But she says, I believed you just in the simplicity of that. I put it to work. And because of that, I got rid of my MS. Because of that, I was able to get a job. And because of that, I was able to get my kids back. And here they are with me at the football game. So some of you listening to this, each story that I've heard, there's much greater stories than that. And they're all special, though. I was able to reattach a PCL that was completely severed 25 years ago. I was shown how to combine some of the things and also produce stem cells, which are very powerful. Even in the disease environment, they can continue to function with a high degree of efficiency because their genes are tuned in such a way. One of the gene products is called superoxide dismutase, and it can reconvert 1 million superoxides per second back to oxygen. Superoxide is oxygen missing an electron. It's what comes out the tailpipe from the cells from turning the life process on. And if you can reconvert 1 million of those per second back to oxygen, that's the most powerful oxygen therapy I've ever heard of. And it's one of the reasons why certain modalities are so powerful, is because they help activate the production of that super antioxidant enzyme, superoxide dismutase, SOD, that we're all born producing. The problem is we start losing that production more and more after the age of 20 until we die, and sometimes earlier. Cancer is the #1 cause of death for children. But typically children have their genes tuned better. And because their master protein that regulates all the disease mechanisms genetically, NRF2, is in most people from the time till we're born to the time we're 20, that we've been alive for 20 years, that NRF2 is active, and then it starts shutting off. But like I said, it can happen faster than that. And it shuts off more and more until we die, and those genes just start expressing genes that express diseases, that will express the disease environment itself. For example, one of those is TGF-B1, TGF-beta. And that is when it overexpresses about 4 times more of that protein of what it's supposed to, then it causes collagen deposition and can create the failure of any organ that happens in. And that leaves us more susceptible to the coronavirus more and more as we get older. And that's just 1 out of 5,000 examples that the world's largest gene database gives, that is called Ingenuity out of Japan, is where that information comes from. There's no biochemist holds all 5,000 of those genes in their head as far as what they are and what they do, but the world's largest gene database has that. And it compiles all the other largest gene databases together into one database. So thus the Ingenuity is ingenious and it's on genes, so it's a spin on words. The Ingenuity database, which things like fasting helps turn on that master regulator. And there you go again. I just gave you something else that you can do if you're low on food during this crisis. Don't panic. It's a time to get your genes tuned back to what they were when you're a healthy newborn. Back to what things were when, I'm going to share screen again. This one is just a photo of a chicken egg. And with that, that is a stem cell, and the genes are tuned perfect. So during the incubation period, during the time that it's in the shell, it doesn't need any external source of oxygen even, because it's producing superoxide dismutase, and it can create a whole living chick, heart beating, breathing, everything, with no external source of oxygen. And it's never really been explained. I don't know any other doctor in the world that talks this way even, but I'm talking this way because I've had experiences. where the main vein in my head was blocked for 9 months, the superior sagittal sinus that's responsible for bringing blood back from the brain, that, you know, help put oxygen in again. And I had a lot of back pressure in my head during that period. And people wonder why I was alive, let alone I wasn't even paralyzed, let alone dead. But, and I had to think, I was on the NRF2 activation technology during that period. And I helped put 2 and 2 together in this area. So it's just 1 out of 5,000 ways for you to be healthier. And I want to talk about efficiency of the cells, because I was shown technology to produce stem cells for every part of my body every day 25 years ago with a wave runner accident. I was T-boned. Both wave runners were totaled with my knee in between. And I was shown this technique that would reattach. Just the only way to do it was to produce the stem cells, and that they had that ability to bridge the gap. Doctors said it was going to be impossible. Again, the top orthopedic surgeons in the state I was in said that would be impossible to reconnect without surgery. It was totally severed. Ripped the PCL out of its top insertion, pulled a piece of bone out with it, and said it would never be able to. They said it would just start shriveling up and be absorbed by the body over time if I didn't get the surgery, and that I'd be lucky if it didn't start locking up on me during the recovery. And it would take about 6 months to recover, with or without surgery. Yet within 6 weeks, I was doing standing backflips on the hard surface with full range of motion, and basing pyramids that are 2.5 high that all go up at the same time. I was a university yell leader for a co-ed cheer squad at the squad that was winning nationals every year, University of Utah at that time. And that was the 94-95 school year. They never lost one football game that I was at. That's the year they took the Freedom Bowl. They lost the 2 nobody teams that weren't even on the charts. And I want to tell you, I won't use what I know for sports anymore. But I want to do a demonstration of the power of the science that we're showing you here, how to activate stem cells instantly. And I'm not going to show you how to do it with this technique. You're going to see on this video somebody here where I can show you some of what happens before and after. And I'm going to do a broadcast for the planet. And any of you who can tap into this time in my frequencies and the intelligence that's broadcast, I'm going to transfer 2 hours worth of, more than 2 hours worth of conscious data within a split second subconsciously. And, you know, I helped reattach a friend's right and left hemisphere of his brain. Here, pull back here. I helped reattach a friend's right and left hemisphere that was hit by a car. It was at Cedar Sinai in Hollywood while I was in New York. And I happened to be on my birthday 2.5 years ago, where I did a live broadcast like this one on Zoom. And I made it free so anybody could watch it. I had about 131 people that were also part of the healing. And I demonstrated a hands-on technique with somebody who I was using as a proxy for everything from the neck up. That's still in my membership area of the Power Heal system and the Applied Lymphology course membership area. There are 2 courses in one, basically, that are available. That's the ultimate goal that I hope every single one of the people who are watching this video, that you go get that. It's available from Dean's links on his websites. And it's of course available from mine, but if you've heard about this through Dean, I highly urge you to go use his links. Let's find a way to help you do that. If there's anything where you're having a hard time finding them, we'll help you with that. But they're there. They're right there. So yeah, I'm going to do this demonstration now, and I think I'm going to turn, well, I'm going to hold this. If we can have you, we have Daisy here still. And I want to just show your hips. So if you turn, yeah, you're back facing the camera here. So from here, we want to get Yeah, with your back facing the camera, so face away. I want to show you with my fingertips. All I'm going to do is show you alignment before and after. So Daisy, here's where her hips are. How many of you can tell that this side, which on the video it looks like your right side, but it's actually in real life it's your left side. The video is reverse mirrored. So how many of you can see that this side over here, what looks like your right, is high, and the other side is low by about a couple of inches? And one of the reasons why I'm using her as the model here is because of this, right? I'm going to flatten off my fingertips to help you see as good as you can. And you can turn a little bit there. That's better for the Facebook Live that we're doing. Okay. So what I'd like you to do now is, for everybody who's listening, if you haven't tapped into your metaphysical yet, it's time to understand that anyone can remote view. It's just a matter of having the understanding, basically. Everyone has the perfect hardware. It's a matter of having the right software and knowing how to do things. And I'm going to prove it because Daisy, all I'm going to do, it doesn't matter what race or religion someone is, when we transfer certain data, when we put certain principles in action, we get the same results every single time. That is a universal law, has been from the beginning. We're one of the oldest teachings: put the principles in action and get the fruit. Science says put the laws in action and measure the results. Same thing, right? So Daisy, this is what I'm going to do, is I'm going to do an activation for you as well as for the planet. Anybody who's watching this video can measure people in the same room who is willing to tap into me. Just as you do it for yourself doesn't mean that someone else is willing to. And there's things called the spirit-to-spirit talk. Our body produces some of the same frequencies that cell phone towers emit. There's some frequencies that time and space is not a factor. And I've been doing something called instant mass healing for a long time. I've done distant healing for a long time. I'm going to send a signal from me. And if you just call out for me at this moment, it is 3:46 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And I'm actually overlooking Coronado Island and the San Diego Bay, overlooking from the other side of that bay, La Playa, at David Levy's house, for those of you who know where that is, but that you don't have to know. The most important thing is I'm going to send out a signal where the size of the audience is not a factor. And I'm going to also add some other empowerment to it that is way bigger, some multidimensional things that help make this easier for me, which I will go into more detail in the Blessing of the Creation sequence. It's a paid thing that I'm going to verbalize. So you can get a lot of that part of it verbally if you're willing to go and get that paid event, okay? And let's go ahead and do this now for you, Daisy. I haven't done it yet. As you can see, this side's still pretty high up here, right? You see that? This is the high side. So here we go. Are you ready, Daisy?
Yes.
Can I hear you say, and everybody who's listening,
Yes.
can I get your permission? Can I get you all to say, show me the power?
Show me the power, yes.
Can I say it a little stronger?
Show me the power, yes.
Are you watching closely, you guys? Okay, here we go. Okay. What's happened to her hips, you guys? Can you see that? This side was up about 2 inches, and now it's level. You can feel it. And you had a lot of pain, didn't you, on one of those sides, because if the sacrum is off, then it pinches the sciatica. And then the longer that happens, the lumbar starts moving over, and it can even pinch the low side. And you've had sciatic pain for how many? 1998. What we did is just shifted the hips, and there's other techniques that I have that help lengthen up the spaces of the spine, where 125 out of all the 600 muscles in the body are in the spinal column. And that technique is in the Power Hill System membership area, along with all the techniques that I've captured on video that we've made available. They're there. So this technique, to line you up, I've done this with whole audiences for many years. I'm going to do it again in the next broadcast a little bit differently. But I mean, I'm going to do it in the Blessing of the Creation sequence one. I have about 5 minutes to tell you what's happening in the next event. That's called the what I have is Prevent, Remove, and Eliminate Coronavirus Now. I'm going to go into more detail on some of the things that stimulate stem cell production. I'm also going to teach a deep breathing technique that I've used to keep the lungs clear. And that technique alone, is worth, in my opinion, it's absolutely priceless, especially for the elderly, who are the ones who are more susceptible right now. The number one cause of death for the elderly has been they break a hip, but not the broken hip. It's because they sit in a hospital bed waiting to recover, and while their lungs fill up with fluid, and they actually die of pneumonia. That is the number one cause of death for elderly, and that's exactly how it happens. And the hospitals aren't telling them, they are not coaching them how to deep breathe. I'm going to demonstrate, there's all kinds of deep breathing techniques. The fact is, we all have a set of lungs, and we really just need to know how to use them. And the fact is, actually using them actively. But I have a technique that I call the singing breath that I've used to help expand lung capacity, as well as specifically to clear the lungs, to keep them clear. So that has been one of the main things that's reported. People are dying of shock. They're also dying of pneumonia from the current scare, which I'm not afraid of. So I was in Asia a few years ago I was in Taiwan and some different areas, but I caught the bug that was flying around that a lot of people were dying from in Taiwan. And it's nothing compared to cancer and heart disease. That's been over 5,000 in the United States alone every single day. And if you talk about the Twin Towers, and that happened in 2001, that was a big thing that the media used as a distraction and manipulation tool, in my opinion, also to distract people from greater truths, such as what would pull people out of the medical dark ages, the specific science that we're making available here and now. And I'm going to share one more slide with you about this. There's a quote. This one here. So I'm going to share this quote so you can read along with me. This is a quote by one of the past presidents of the organization that the science was placed in 1966 that basically buried it. My father was the first non-medical doctor to become a member of that organization. I was helping do presentations there in '95 on the cause of AIDS, how the HIV virus kills, and how to stop it. But this is the Lymphatic Manifesto, we call it. 1983, ISL past president John R. Castley Smith wrote of many millions who would suffer from widespread ignorance. And this is a man, this doctor was a past president from Australia. And he said, some will lose their lives, some will lose their limbs. Many will suffer needless pain and incapacity. Many research workers will get incorrect results, all of this through simple ignorance of the importance of the lymphatics. And he said, no other system is so neglected. So that is why we're making it possible for every single person here to be pulled out of the medical dark ages. It is the lymphatic system's job to take the cells from the disease environment back, because that's a subpressure environment. The blood vessels can't be responsible for that. It has to be the lymphatic vessels, right? And once you do that, the life processes turn on. Symptoms disappear. You feel good. When enough cells shut off because of the disease environment, anytime we break any of the laws of any aspect of our lives, and most empowerment leaders don't dare talk about the areas we've been abused the most. It all causes the disease environment. When you turn the life processes on, they all bring it back here. This is what every healing art does, why they work and how they work. When we break the laws, it causes a disease environment. When we're applying the right principles, it brings the cells back in a healthy environment. And we can prevent that disease environment from even happening. We can create perfect living environments in and around our cells. And there's verse 19 out of Matthew chapter 5, and I want to say it because it was, whether you call him the Son of God or just a great master, I think we can all agree he was at least a great master, Jesus Christ. His most famous sermon was the Sermon on the Mount, which included the Beatitudes, and he said, if any man doesn't live by even the least of these things, after explaining lots of different laws, if any man doesn't live by even the least of these things and teaches other men it's okay to not live by even the least of these things, he shall be named the least in the kingdom of heaven. I'm just bringing that up because it blows most dominant religions' theories right out of the water, including most Christian theories. And most people don't understand why he said that. If you want to understand, get into the laws of empowerment, dig deep to help you understand the purpose of why he said that. It's not just one thing that we form a whole religion or a few beautiful things that are so beautiful to form a whole religion around. That mindset has to be pushed aside. It's time that we are getting it all and doing it all, understanding who we really are, and building our own relationship, our own evolution spiritually with our higher selves, integrating what we really can achieve. I just gave a little bit of an example of what is possible with Daisy here, and anybody whose hips are out, you know, or it'll help level off the neck and hips every single time. Now, Daisy, it wouldn't surprise me if this lasts a couple weeks or longer, because I've been getting more powerful with it.
Yeah.
I don't know how long it's going to last for people who are successful of tapping into that timestamp that I gave and the actual broadcast that I gave today. It's an experiment. Like I said, this is the first time in 2020 that this has even ever been shared, because you didn't actually see it happen. It was the power of subconscious data transfer, which happens way faster than our conscious mind. It is capable of transferring that much data that fast.
I could feel it.
Yeah, you could feel it, and you
I
felt the
could
shift.
I remember how it was. One side was higher, the left side was higher, and the right side was lower. But after I could feel the shift, even when you balance it, tapping into it, I could feel it.
The
There was
difference.
more
Yeah,
level.
you've been, and since the 80s. Okay, so we're on a time to get off this call, and I got to get on the other one. So remember the lawsofempowerment.com. If that's all you do, I encourage everyone to take the next step, because I'm going to start teaching you a specific technique that can start saving lives. And I'm going to get off this one, hop on the other one. So thank you very much.
Thank you for